Good morning, CLC. As we move into our meditation, I invite you to begin by just taking a deep breath and just letting it out slowly, putting everything at one side, and simply be here right now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging the higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I'm ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words, I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I am willing to accept as real for me in this coming week, visualizing the idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled, and gratefully speak these words, I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me, a family member, a friend, a mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who's not physically present in the room this morning, or maybe not even on the planet anymore. And I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and I say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes to the world around me and I turn joyfully to the person next to me or those around me and share my gratitude and confidence by saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Notice the pattern, yeah. Was it last week? I don't know. The question came up about, do we who put on these services all get together and chart a course musically and tie it to the talks and stuff? No. We actually have tried that from time to time, and it completely falls apart. Somebody will call in sick or whatever, and, the whole thing just goes sideways. But when we let Spirit kind of move it along, it works perfectly. And I had told the group last week offhandedly where I thought today's talk was going to go, and then during the week pivoted. I had a song picked out for them and decided it was inappropriate, and so you like that. We do screen a little bit for your sensibilities, you know. And I didn't tell them where I pivoted to, and it was, well, you'll see in a minute, but that song works perfectly with where I want to take us in words today, because we're completing a series that is drawing on lyrics and poems, but it's to make a point. And what I do try to do every week is look at the start with the end in mind. What is the outcome that I would like to try to facilitate with you, the listeners, to give you a better week, to give you a greater sense of self, to give you a greater feeling of comfort and empowerment, and whatever it is you need. I don't know what you need. But there is something that does know, and to try to be an open channel for that. And then so it occurred to me this month that a means to doing that is to look at rhythm and rhyme, to look at the poetic life that we have within us, especially if we've kind of suppressed that or weren't really aware that it was there, that poetry was this sort of elevated thing on a pedestal, that there's a special group of people who create that, and long ago it was better than recently, and it's sort of a stultified thing. No, it's a living thing. It's a living stream of energy that moves through us. So all of that by way of saying that today we're going to look at surprise and remembrance. We're going to look at two things that inform the present, that which happened in the past and that which we can reasonably expect to happen in the future, and how all of this is moving through us. And I'm also bringing in bits of poetry and lyrics that I have forgotten to give you, that have been in my notes over the previous weeks of this month that I never got to. One of them being by Jay-Z from the song A Dream. It says, "Nobody built like you, you designed yourself." Nobody built like you. You designed yourself. You're designing yourself as you go along. You're creating through consciousness the particular style of life that you have, the particular means and ways that you go. And in order to do that most effectively, it requires being the whole self. In September, I'm going to do a series on spiritual healing. And spiritual healing is about spiritual wholeness, the whole self, the whole body, the whole set of emotions, especially the whole set of emotions, especially for today, the whole set of emotions, because sometimes we have the mistaken idea in metaphysics that we are supposed to simply look on the bright side of things, that we're only to look at that which we desire to experience and not what led up to it, that we're only supposed to look at the happy and pleasant sort of feelings that we have and nothing else, except the happy and pleasant feelings don't need anything from us and the other stuff does. And that's why what you want to do, ideally, is embrace all of the sensations, all of the feelings, all of the emotions that you have and treat them all equally, which I think is what that song was saying. I'm not sure what cartoon it came from, but I have a hunch. But anyhow, it's, yeah, so to treat them all equally, to treat them all as valuable bringers of information. When I'm angry, what is that telling me? Years ago when I got into metaphysics, one of the pat things they said, which actually turned out to be true, I think, more often than not, is that anger bespeaks fear. When you're angry about something, you're afraid of something, but you can't show that you're afraid of something because that makes you what? Vulnerable. So in order to plaster over your vulnerability, you develop this expression of power, false power, force. There's a good book on that, power versus force. But that you, so now it's I'm impermeable. You know, I'm bulletproof. I am this, and the anger builds over time when not dealt with, when not looked at, and turns into rage, turns into explosive rage, and then you're not really fit for company, are you? Then you're not really fit for civilized society when you're in this place of explosive rage. How do you dismantle the rage? You take it apart piece by piece, and you ask it where it came from, and you ask it what it wants from you. And this is what you can do with all of your feelings. You don't have to interrogate them. You don't have to stare them down. But you ask them, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? Like you would of a human. Like you would of a pestering human. What do you have to tell me? What do I need to know about this? And the same with sadness. And I'm going to spend more today on sadness than I am on anger. Because part of our condition in life is a fear of the future. And we hang on to things. We tie ourselves to the past, to the good old days, how things used to be when everything was wonderful, except when we were there, it wasn't. Or if it was for us, it wasn't for somebody else. And so we developed this sort of fantasy life of romanticizing that which has come before, so as to offset the sadness that we have at the passage of time and at the experience of loss. This is unhealthy. This is dysfunctional in our culture that we do this as much as we do. We can't ever allow ourselves to fully grieve when a part of us is telling us that grief is it's never going to let us go. That's a fear that we have. It's a similar fear in a way to the fear of meditation, believe it or not. Because meditation is turning off the cognitive process for a moment in order to just purely listen. And there's a part of us, I don't know why, but there's a part of most of us anyway, that says if you do that, you're never getting it back. If you turn off the chattering mind, you're going to get radio silence from now on. And they'll tell you that it's the ego that's saying this to you. The ego, which is the aspect of self, the aspect of consciousness that believes that the intellect is the driving force to everything. It says, so if you take your hands off the wheel, it's just like the feeling we had when they first started talking about driverless cars. I freaked out when they said driverless car. And I said to Jay, I said, I'm never getting in one of those. I would sooner get in a hot air balloon, and I'm never getting in one of those. Okay, than a driverless car. Oh my God, because why? Because you got to drive your life. You know, you got to stay in control. You got to stay in. And that's true to me. And so I probably never will get in a driverless car. But there are times I need a driverless life. There are times I need a driverless mind. To let something else, something greater, not something alien, not something distant, but something greater than just my grasp of the facts take over things. See, everything that we think about as a determining factor in making our choices is predicated on prior information. Does that make sense? Just like statistics are a measure of the past. Every statistic, this percentage of people do that, all of that was measured yesterday or before, or an hour ago or before. If it hasn't happened yet, or it's still in the process of unfolding, you can't really quantify it in that way. So we build our choices based on precedent, and one great spiritual teacher in New Thought said, principle, however, is not based on precedent. Principle is based on spontaneity. It's based on living in the moment, standing where you are now. So there's a time to surrender. There's a time to let go. And a lot of the sadness that we have, of course, is around death, particularly the death of people who are not us. We look at our own mortality, and we have a body of energy around that, but we look at the losses that we've experienced in our life of people that we counted on, people that we loved. And there are some poems and songs and snippets of lyric. There's a lot of stuff out there, and it's all wonderful, but there's some stuff that's touched me. One of these is Warren Zevon. They moved the moon. I think that's what it's called. They moved the moon. It says, I looked away, and they moved the moon. And the lyric thrust of that is everything I counted on was shifted. The stars were in a different place and everything. I glanced away for a moment. And everything that I had based my, what, celestial navigation on. The triangulation of information that's moving me in a certain place, all of that had changed. And he feels lost. Later, Warren Zevon was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he was very open about it, and he sang about it and wrote about his feelings in the moment, and then talked about, he wrote a, what would you call it, a eulogy song for himself called Keep Me in Your Heart for a While, for his family. This is a guy, I loved his music from way back when, and he was better known as a songwriter than as a performer until he began to get out on his own and perform. You would know him for the song Werewolves of London, if you're drawing a blank on this, but he had a whole lot else going on. But he wrote in that kind of way. He wrote in that kind of, silly and fun and slightly twisted way, except when he got very sincere and deep as he moved through his life. Well, that's what grief does to us, is it moves things around, and that which we counted on is no longer there. We want to acknowledge this to ourselves. We want to be aware of this, and we want to be aware of it in our care and compassion for other people as well. There's another musician that I've loved for a really long time named Bob Mould, M-O-U-L-D. Bob Mould was the founding member of the band Husker Du, which is a punk band, and later Sugar, and then he was a solo artist, and he's been around a very long time, but he's got a brand new album out, and he's got a song on that album about when your heart is broken. When your heart is broken. He says, you can't find the breath to speak when your heart is broken. And he talks from a place of heartbreak. Not current heartbreak, I don't know, but we've all been through it, right? And he says you can't find, everything is different, everything is strange now. You live in an unfamiliar space. But the strange thing about this song is it's like a joyous anthem when you listen to him perform it musically. It's not a somber thing. Some of you are right now going on your phones. I can see. This is good. Particularly those of you at home who are without shame. Need no shame. Yeah, look him up, Bob Mould. He was on Jimmy Fallon. He did the song with his band on Jimmy Fallon, but they have a lyric video of it too where you can follow really what he's saying. But it's this joyous kind of thing. It's like, yeah, when your heart is broken, this happens and that happens, and you forget who you are. And I thought, this is a guy who not only has experienced heartbreak, but he's fully experienced it. He's given himself over to it. He said, I'm a mess. I hurt. This is awful. And what do I do with it? Well, I'm a songwriter. So I'll write a song about it. If he were a painter, he'd paint a picture about it. No? He's done something wholesome with it. And he's helped other people. And you will, when you look at these videos, if you do this on YouTube, you'll see there's a comment thread. And invariably, the comments, of course, people being people, the comments are all over the map. But a lot of the comments will say, he's saying what I'm feeling better than I feel I could say it right now. Or this song got me through. Or his work, or his body of work over the years has gotten me through certain situations and stuff. That's the healing and redemptive power of all of this. The poetry of your life includes all the textures of your life. It includes all the wins and all the celebrations. It includes all the losses as well. And it includes that kind of gray area between the two where you're trying to figure out. See, every win, in a way, depending on your positioning in psychological expectation, what they call your story, your schema, can be interpreted in a way of optimism or pessimism. In other words, like somebody tells you, I love you. And where do you go with that? Your first thought, or the body of your thoughts, might go with, "Oh, wonder if somebody loves me." Yeah, here's another song. "I've often walked down this street before, but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet." You know that one from My Fair Lady, right? "Here I am several stories high, just to be on the street where you live." Isn't that wonderful and grand? That's one place to take it. Here's another place to take it. "You love me? For how long?" Then what? Drop the other shoe. You see? So there's this gray area between of where are we going to steer our expectations on this. You're in my life? For how long? How badly are you going to hurt me? How cautious do I need to be? How much risk is too much risk? And we hold back. We hold back. Interestingly enough, we hold back, and then we're unhappy to think that there's a God that might hold back. We expect God to kind of withhold stuff from us because of who we've been or the choices that we've made. But we don't want that. We want God to forgive, right? But we haven't forgiven ourselves. And part of self-forgiveness is to acknowledge all of the feelings. Shame, embarrassment, stupidity. Stupidity's a feeling, actually. Awkwardness. And just plain out a sense of loss. Just, I don't know what to do next. Here's a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I just found this. It fell out of nowhere. It's been around a long time because she was a long time ago. She wrote it for the holidays. This is strong. I'll send it to you if you want. Life must go on, and the dead be forgotten. Life must go on, though good men die. Anne, eat your breakfast. Dan, take your medicine. Life must go on. I just forget why. I just forget why. Have you ever been in that place? I know I've got to get up and go to work tomorrow. I know I've got to feed the kids and do the dog and this and that. And I've got obligations and responsibilities, but I don't know why, because I've lost my guiding star. You can lose your guiding star when a person that you depend on leaves the earth. You can also lose your guiding star by forgetting you have one. That's beyond personality, that there is something. When Ernest Holmes and others taught us that there's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it, they didn't just mean for the big wins, the big triumphant moments. They also meant that when you forget who you are, there's something that will remind you, because it made you. Because it made you. It not only made you, but it made you from within itself. That was the material it used when it made you. It made you out of God's stuff. Walt Whitman said something about a blade of grass, a leaf of, he wrote, Leaves of Grass was his great poetic collection. He said, where is it now here? I believe a leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars. I believe a leaf of grass is no less than a journey work of the stars. If a leaf of grass, as insignificant as that seems to be, is the journey work of the stars, who are you? Right? Who are you? With all the choice and all the power and all the capacity for love and understanding and goodness and kindness that you have in you, you are the journey work of the stars. This puts me in mind of a favorite Ernest Holmes quote that's in our practitioner training material, where he says, and you've heard this from me a million times, but where he says, the mind that made a star is the same mind that you use. The mind that made a star is the same mind that you use. And when I bring up that quote to classes and stuff, where I explain it, what my affinity for it, as being about that it's not a passive statement, as it would be if one were to say, the mind that made a star is the same mind that made you, which is true. And it made the chair you're sitting in, and the building, and the moon, and the stars, and the sun. It made everything there is, because what else could have, right? All of that's true, but it's not quite as empowering, is it? It's to say the mind that made a star is the same mind that you and I use. And then we ask ourselves, we say, well, I don't need a star. There are plenty of them, and I wouldn't know where to begin. But you do know what you do need. And you do know where to begin with that. And sometimes where you begin with that is in a glorious, elevated place, and sometimes where you begin with that is in the wreckage of the past. And you rise like the phoenix out of these experiences of the past. Using that mind, using that consciousness and directing it along certain lines. So, Edna St. Vincent Millay, who also said famously in a different poem that I did know of, she said that something like, what gets you in life or what grinds you in life is not one damn thing after another. She said it's the same damn thing over and over. And I can relate to that, right? It's here this is again. And we lump situations together and we say, oh, here comes trouble, here comes this. It looks like another human. It looks like, it's just another manic Monday, right? It's just another experience of the same thing. Same stuff, different day. And you fall into that way of thinking, and guess what happens? Life begins to conform to the expectation that we have of it. But beyond all this, in the tabernacle of the Almighty, at the banquet hall of heaven, is something beyond anything you and I have touched, said Ernest Holmes. So in embracing all of the feelings, what I suggest that you do, a place to start, a thread to pull, is write it down and make notes and create something of an expression of your feelings in an untidy kind of way that looks like poetry. And I think that poetry actually as an art began as untidy prose. You know? When people first started writing, which I think was around 6,000 or 7,000 years, not a whole long time ago, 6,000 or 7,000 or 8,000 years, that's real approximate, so Lisa will fact check. But when people started writing, and they used sort of primitive instruments, it wasn't easy physically to write, and you had to be literate for one thing, but you also had to have materials at hand. Do this. They tried to tell stories. Stories unfold as prose. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have a thesis and an antithesis, and you get the whole idea. And but when somebody came along and they wrote in a way that was kind of untidy and all over the place, that became poetry. Then they came back and edited it, and they said, well, this will work better if it scans and rhymes. And so it's got to have so many syllables per line, and this kind of thing, and an emphasis on the right syllable, and then it's got to and then let it pour out of you in that untidy kind of way. Let it pour out of you these feelings that you have, and it might be a little disturbing, might be a little dark, but get it out there on the page, and suddenly it can't bite you anymore. Suddenly it's free kind of thing. Here's another example of this. Somebody sent me a song, and it's called a happy song. A song called Happy Song by a band called Bring Me the Horizon. And I listened to this. I listened to a live version of this, and it's not a happy song at all. And what it's talking about is if I had a happy song, I wouldn't have to deal with this stuff that I'm dealing with, which looks like estrangement and it sounds like borderline mental illness. It is, because my mind, he says, is like a carousel going round and round in circles. But if I had a happy song, we could all just sing along. And it's got the F word in it a few places, this particular song. So if you find that disturbing, you just don't say I didn't warn you. But it's well worth listening to, because it's ironic. You see, and it's saying this is what so often we'll want to do with ourselves and with others, and have others do with us, is, oh, get over it. Oh, just you feel better. Just look on the bright side of life and just whistle a happy tune and so on, without going into the real experience of what's wrong. Look, if I got into this conversation with somebody recently about sacred places. They were telling me about sacred places on the earth and how this city and that, Machu Picchu and this are sacred places. And I was very polite with them in the conversation, but within me I was going, baloney. Baloney. Either every place is sacred, or there is no sacredness. There just flat isn't. There are places where our ancestors lived and performed ceremonies and created architectural marvels and so on. Sure, of course. But all places are sacred. Either spirit is all there is, or it's nowhere to be found. Either spirit is all there is, or it isn't worth the time it takes to say so. It just isn't. You know? So if that's the case, then spirit is everywhere within the self, and it's everywhere within the artistic expression of the self. It's within every feeling and so on. And that's why all of this stuff is coming to us in the way that it is, in the sequence that it is, for our inspection and for our engagement, in order to understand more of who we are. One more sad bit of poetry for you, which I'm not going to read to you because it's quite long, and it's also more impactful if you read it yourself. And a lot of people weren't aware of it until a movie came out some years ago called 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And in that movie, at I guess the 4th wedding, a man drops dead. A man drops dead, whose husband gets up at the funeral, and amidst the eulogies, and this is a group of people who all love each other, and they've all been together as friends for some time, is what the movie develops. The man gets up and he eulogizes his love with a poem that he recites. Now that takes, how do you do that? How do you do that? And the poem is called The Funeral Blues by W.H. Auden. It begins with stop all the clocks. Stop all the clocks. And goes on from there. And it's basically saying put everything away, and everything that was normal and everything that was familiar and everything that was comforting, put all that away, because none of that means anything anymore. And I can just imagine, and I don't remember how it was received. I mean, he's doing this in the middle of a service in the movie, but probably what would happen in real life, if you do that, is all these people run up to you, say, oh, no. You'll get over it. Things will get better. The time will pass, which is true. But also interfering, also interrupting, also off the point, which is the point is, right now, there's nothing but a big gaping hole where your love used to be, where your life, they say this about grief, that when you grieve, the thing that you're principally grieving is the future that you don't get to have. God, that makes a lot of sense. Think about that. You're grieving, and then sometimes we say, well, that's unfair of me because that makes it about me. And I should be grieving the loss of this person. But as we often say in this room, when we're having a memorial service, which sadly we've had too many of here in the last few years, we'll say the person that we're eulogizing here today is the one person in all of this who is just fine. Who is just fine because they've gone on to their new experience and they have. Now, do we know that for sure? No, we really don't, because I believe they've gone on to their new experience, and I don't think people go to hell and all of that kind of thing. But what has happened is they miss us. I mean, wouldn't you want to think? Wouldn't you want to think? Those are, to make it a little less dramatic, those animals that you've had in your life who crossed the Rainbow Bridge, who the poem says, another great poem, the poem says that when you cross the Rainbow Bridge, all the pets, all the domestic companions you've ever had, come running, thundering across, leap up into your arms. If you've owned a lot of them, they probably knock you down, but here all, like the old, what is it, Crispy Critters, the old Crispy Critters commercial. Well, here come all of these wonderful animals. Well, how do they know you? Well, they've missed you. And I think the loved ones who've gone on before us miss us. But they also have a whole life ahead of them, and they're not quite as distraught as we are because they know where they are and we don't. Because we can't see around the bend. So we have all sorts of suspicions. Did they just go poof into thin air, you know? But what we know is that wherever they are and whatever they're up to, we're not okay right now. And that recognition in the moment is a healing thing. It teaches us about love. Now, there are schools of thought that will say, you want to short circuit this whole thing, you want to avoid all of this kind of, don't ever love anybody. Just keep to yourself. Just find a cave and live in it, and, you know, all like that. Well, one day the cave will go away and you'll miss there's always something. There's always going to be some kind of attachment. We make these attachments. And the more exuberant attachments that we make, the better off I think we are, because they make us better people. I've rubbed off my rough edges throughout my life, as have you, by the presence of what? Other people, right? You have all of these kind of half-formed opinions and things like this, and you go out and you express it to other people, and they agree with you, or they don't. Better yet, they don't agree with you, and you get an awakening. You get an awakening out of experience. So all of this stuff is informing us, everything from the past, every expectation that we have about the future. Take it all in. Take it all in. Take it all in. It won't hurt you. All it will do, some of it will rinse right out of you. You know? Just like some of the food you eat, you know? Right? What you don't need, you know how to release it. Body knows how to, boom, there it goes. So you let it go. You don't want to entertain this particular thought any longer. You release it to the night air. But don't be afraid of it as it comes in. Don't be afraid of your fear. Don't be afraid of your anger. Don't be afraid of your grief. Don't be afraid of your questions. Don't be afraid of blaming God. God can take it. Don't be afraid of asking the big questions, which a lot of us in a religious setting were taught not to do. We don't ask those kinds of questions here. It's written in the book. It's in the liturgy. Or it's a mystery and you can never know it. Now, you've heard me a lot talk about recently, particularly the great mystery. Well, the great mystery is still a great mystery, but it doesn't have bars on its windows. You know what I'm saying? The great mystery invites you into it. You still can't explain it, but it's not trying to keep you out. So we go to it. We say, show me that which I need to know. And one last thing, sometimes what life will show you, I have discovered, is it will show you stuff out of sequence. It will show you stuff that you ought to know before you need to know it. You get information and you're like, why did that come to me? Because 2 weeks or 2 years or 2 centuries from now, somehow it's going to come in handy. And it will still be in there. So this makes stuff interesting. You ever roll your eyes, somebody comes up and starts to tell you a story, you're like, blah, 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 blah. This has no bearing on anything. Why do I need to know this? Pay attention. There are no accidents in that regard. Whatever comes to you can be used in some way. And if you forget it, that's just in your short-term packet of processing up here. The mind that you are, and the mind that made you, which is the same mind that made a star, can never forget anything. It's in there, and it will hold it for you until the proper time. Let me see if I have anything else for you. Now, oh, that's good. I like that, but you'll have to save that for next time. And I'm going to tell you more in the announcements of what all's coming up here. But for now, okay, I'll close with one last line. I did forget. This is funny. I wrote this down for the first week, and I've neglected to say it every week since. So maybe he doesn't want to say. I love this guy's work from the old days, Robert Graves. Robert Graves. He's known best for I, Claudius. But he wrote The White Goddess, which is a book about, druidry and herbs and trees and all kinds of kind of esoteric stuff. A wonderful poet and a student of mythology and a student of classical Greek wisdom. He said to be a poet is a condition, not an occupation. Isn't that great? It's a condition. Well, we are all afflicted with that wonderful condition. I thank you for your kind attention. Let's know together now there is one life, one power, one presence, the mind that made a star, the mind that is that star, that has never moved an inch away from its own creation, but infuses its own creation. And part of that creation is each one of us. We have within us what it takes to develop our own experience, make up our own minds, to grow and thrive and prosper, release that which is outworn, embrace that which is yet to come. As this is occurring through us, there is an easy and healthy balance of thought and emotion. We're willing to feel it all. That is what it means to be vulnerable. And then to express that vulnerability and to support it in those we care about without critical judgment placed on the words, the intentions of our beloveds. For we are all moving into healing, and yet we are moving into healing from a place that we occupy that has never been anything but whole. Therefore, we have the wind at our backs. We have the power of all creation working through us, supporting us on this journey for this knowing and its manifestation in form everywhere I turn. I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
Come on. Now we're going to present to you a poem by Edward Lear, read to us by Sasha Davis. No. And the name of this poem is The Pobble Who Has No Toes. It's a bit nonsensical. We don't know what we're going to do, except we do know we're going to do this. Closer.
The pobble who has no toes had once as many as we. When they said, "Someday you may lose them all," he replied, "Fish fiddle-dee-dee." And his Aunt Jo Basker made him drink lavender water tinged with pink. And she said, "The world in general knows there's nothing so good for a pobble's nose." The pobble who has no toes swam across the Bristol Channel, but before he set out he wrapped his nose in a piece of scarlet flannel. For his Aunt Jo Basker said no harm can come to his toes if his nose is warm. And it's perfectly known that a pobble's toes are safe, provided he minds his nose. The pobble swam fast and well, and when boats or ships came near him, he blinkety-blinked a bell, so that all the world could hear him, and all the sailors and admirals cried when they saw him nearing the further side. He has gone to fish for his Aunt Jo Basker's runcible cat, with crimson whiskers. But before he touched the shore, the Bristol Channel, a sea-green porpoise carried away the toes in a manner so far from pleasant. Whether the shrimps or the crawfish grey or crafty mermaids stole them away, nobody knows and nobody knew how the Pobble was robbed of his twice 5 toes. The Pobble who has no toes was placed in a friendly bark, and they rowed him back and they carried him up to his Aunt Jobeska's park. And she made him a feast at his earnest wish of eggs and buttercups and fried with fish. And she said, "It's a fact that the whole world knows that pobbles are better without their toes."
Hello again. So I welcome you here to Creative Life. If this is your first Sunday with us, which I don't see anyone I don't recognize in the room, but those of you online, let us hear from you in the chat, and there's a link in there to the weekly email sign-up form that we have, so you can keep apprised of our activities, which are many. We have stuff going on pretty much every night of the week. I especially want to draw your attention to the fall classes that are beginning. On the 2nd of October, Reverend Dana Vogt of this center will be teaching self-mastery with David LeMaster, practitioner. It's a certificated science mind class, one of the intermediate classes that leads ultimately toward qualification for practitioner studies. But more than that, it's a great class about what? Feelings, about emotion, and how emotion is part of your spiritual toolkit. So check it out. Coming up, that's Thursday night starting October 2nd, 8 weeks. After the first of the year, Reverend David and Jim Cantor are going to teach a course called Change Thinking, Change Your Life. But before then, I've got an Emma Hopkins class for you coming up. This is 12 weeks, 6 of them this year, 6 of them after the first of the year. It's a non-certificated class. I kind of made it up myself because of my deep love for her work. I think you'd enjoy it. It's sort of a book study on steroids is what it's looking like right now, and it's apparently going to be popular because I already had a bunch of people sign up. It doesn't start for 3 months. We also have the first year of practitioner training beginning if you're qualified for that. So again, lots of things happening now, wonderful things being planned for the coming years. Next week, you are in for a treat. Now, you've heard Reverend David. No disrespect to Reverend David and the excellent job he does on the announcements, but he has pitched Reverend Arthur to you as a man you will not sleep through. And I sit there and I think, I need to add something to that. Because we could have a drum solo next week. You wouldn't sleep through that either. But Reverend Arthur is one of these people. He says he gets up, when he gets up to speak, his thought is not, are they going to like me? Are they going to like what I have to say? Are they going to enjoy it? He says, no. Are they going to go out of here? Is my congregation going to go out of here saying, now I know what I must do? Now I know what I must do. He spent many, many years as an executive pastor of a Southern Baptist church. And then he read some literature, and it got him thinking in a different way, and he came into New Thought, and he's been a part of this center for, oh my God, almost 20 years now. You know, well, like 18 or something like that, and it seems like just the other day. Anyway, I call him my little brother. He calls me his big brother because, yeah, there's an age difference, but we both have been in the work for approximately the same length of time overall. So come hear him next week. Those of you watching at home, drop everything. Catch it on Facebook, later on YouTube if you can't be with us in that window of time. Reverend Arthur Johnson next week. finally, I cannot be here next week, or I would come to hear him and give him a proper introduction, which I haven't done for some time. The last 3 or 4 times he's spoken here, I've taken off and haven't been here, but I'd love to get up, give him a hug right up here on stage and present him to you that way, but I'm having to do that now. One last thing for you is just keep this in mind, is this next weekend is poignant and significant for a number of us here because it's the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And this center and its congregation, many of you were not with us 20 years ago, this center and its congregation stepped up big. We had people down at the Astrodome, we had people at the George Brown, and we created an event here. We created a dinner for a bunch of people, evacuees who were brought by bus from Center City, New Orleans, who had never been out of that city before, didn't know what they were going to do, didn't know where they were going to turn, and we were blessed and privileged to have them turn to us, as were many of our and they are our neighbors now. And I'm not going to name names, but there's some people in this congregation who were part of that wave of evacuees who came from the city and are here. And keep them in memory, and the people that were lost and the families that are still reeling from that experience of 20 years ago. So that's what I have for you now. Now it's time for, pivot again, giving time. This beautiful center that we have, you made this. You built this. You sustained it. You know, all the funding that we receive in this place comes from you. We don't get government grants and things like that. You know, we don't have side hustles, and we're not making moonshine in the back room or something like this to keep. No, it all comes through your generosity, and we so appreciate it, and we steward it, we believe, well for you, and provide back to you, if I may dare call it a product. We provide back to you a product of usefulness to you in exchange for giving. So I invite you to bear that in mind as we say together now, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
You very kindly offered me your hand, and I didn't take it because my hands hurt. Do you know why my hands hurt? Because I found every link except one.
Yeah.
Every link except, the only one I couldn't find was the Edna St. Vincent Millay Grind You. I couldn't find that one. That poem.
Okay.
That's the only one I couldn't find. I found everything else.
Yeah.
So it is in the YouTube chat. If there are any of the videos or the poems or anything that you want, they are going to be in the Facebook chat, and I will move them to the YouTube chat, the chat. And just for your information, because both David and I Googled it, I linked to an article. Writing was invented at least 4 times independently, mostly around 5,000 years ago, possibly as much as 8,000 years ago. So they kind of average about 4,000 BC. So 5,000, 6,000, and they keep finding more information. So who knows? So there's an article in there too. Like I said, Danielle, please get better and come back. Your job is hard, especially when I'm doing your job and my job at the same time. So, but my last job is the easy one. It is to remind you that it is all sacred all the time. And to invite you to consciously step with me into the sacred now. And to know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And that each and every one of us are manifestations of that love. And when we remember who we are, amazing things happen. So in this coming week, I invite you to remember who you are. To look in the mirror and see the divine looking back at you. I invite you to look into every being's eyes that you meet. if they walk on 2 legs, if they walk on 4, if they walk on 6 or 8. That is the divine looking back at you. Because I promise you, when you see the divine looking back at you, you move through this world differently. Thich Nhat Hanh says that our footsteps should be kissing the earth. When we walk through the world knowing who we are, when we walk through and allow our footsteps to be kisses to the earth, think of what the world would be like if everyone did that. And it starts with you. It starts with you knowing that you are a beloved expression of the divine. And that anything is possible. And to allow that divine love to flow through you, in you, as you. That is the truth that I know about each and every one of us. And I am grateful to know that. And I'm grateful for a teaching that reminds me of that. I'm grateful for a community that comes together to remind each other of that. I am grateful for our ministers, our practitioners, our musicians. I am grateful for the cartoons that inspire us, the music that holds us, and the poets that speak the words that sometimes we just can't. I am grateful for each and every one of you, and I'm grateful for the technology that lets us reach out across the earth, the universe, the ethers. And I release my word into that law with that divine love, knowing that it is so, and so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my mind. I feel it in everything I am. I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. So it is.